Welcome to the creative community. I'm your host, David Starkey, and my guest this time is poet George Yatchisin. George, welcome.
Thank you, David. It's nice to be back
I was,
for a little chin
yeah,
with you.
yeah, sorry. Our last guest was saying, I just saw George on there. Well, he's back again. George, you are the current poet laureate of Santa Barbara, California. We were taping this in March of 2026, so it's about halfway through your first term. You were applying for a grant, and you sent me a list of all the readings that you have done or the events you've been part of. And I I quoted my old friend David Case from Alabama, which is, "Good Lord, you've been doing a lot."
It's been busy, yes. It's been fun though. I mean, I'm not good at saying no, so
Right.
it's always fascinating to have people make these suggestions for things to happen.
And you're like,
And it's hard for me to, it's like, oh, that sounds interesting. Sure, let's do it, as long as it works in my schedule.
yeah.
So then that starts becoming a thing because it's can be busy. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it seems like whenever I talk to you, you've just done something or you're about to do something. But we want to start off first. Every Santa Barbara Poet Laureate has a big project or two during their time. Mine was working with TVSB to do video poems.
Yeah.
And we had
You're still here.
we're still here, yeah. Laurent Bosselar did a book that was a collection of anthologies meant to go in waiting rooms while you wait. And you have also done an anthology, A Feast for Santa Barbara. So tell us a little bit about that.
This is actually a cover reveal in some ways. 'Cause
Yeah.
we haven't had it out a whole lot, but it turned out. Let's do the backstory. In my history, I've written about food and drink for a long time, both as a poet and as a journalist for many, many years. All the time I've been writing. So obviously, I had a natural affinity to want to do something around that area, and I thought, well, why can't everybody else write poems about food and drink? And so we put out the call for this, and there's 117 poets in here from all the living Santa Barbara Poets Laureate to sixth graders, all the way up to 95-year-olds,
Right.
a whole bunch of people who it's their first poetry publication.
And they were really excited about that. Yeah.
And so it's been fun, and it's such a wide range of what people write about. So it's been exciting, and this will be out the beginning of April.
Okay.
Thanks
By
to
the
Gunpowder
time, by the
Press.
time this show is out,
Fine local press.
I'm feeling good things about it.
Yeah. So, and yeah, I'm just very happy. It's just like, and it's a physical thing. It's
Yeah.
nice. The books.
Well, tell me a little bit about the 117 poets, and I know you were curating for quality. You wanted to make sure that that everything in here was a good poem. But people are writing at different levels. Some of us have been writing for decades, and then some people who just started writing, but they have a knack for it.
Yeah.
How did you manage to navigate all that that variety?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, part of it was trying to be more open. I didn't want to be super exclusive with this because I wanted it to be a kind of statement from the community.
And it's
from the
one poem
county.
per poet. Is that
And it's
right?
one poem per poet, yeah. And people could submit up to 3, which many did, and then I would pick one. And some of that would be like, well, we already have 12 avocado poems.
Right.
I
It's
need-
time for a celery poem.
Yes, if this person did something else, we might go there.
Right.
Things like that. So there's some of that going on. And then just trying to think about how to order it in a way that you would have a more established poet often side by side with somebody who was a little bit newer, but the poems connected somehow, I
Right.
hoped.
Right.
And then you would see, oh, there is kind of a conversation going on here.
Yeah.
So that was one of the goals too.
Well, and it's interesting too. I mean, food and drink are obviously necessary for life. So they're core things.
I'm just water, I promise.
But we're also in our town, our county. It can be quite a highfalutin thing. Very expensive wines and dinners and stuff like that. But that's not what all these poems are necessarily about.
Oh, not at all. There's certainly some of that, and sometimes people are poking fun at that.
Right.
So it's fun. There's a poem about the El Encanto back in the 80s for someone who worked there back then. So it's this kind of tension of, yes, it's very she, but I'm just a server who hopes some stuff comes back in the kitchen on a plate that doesn't look too bad that I can shovel away. So there's things like that, to a lot of people thinking about labor in all kinds of ways, not just farmers, but what it's like to work in kitchens, things like that. So there's a real range, I think, of opinions and voices and what things people want to celebrate. And sometimes, express the complexity of our relationships with food and drink. Right. Not just always complete blind praise.
Right. But any big surprises as you were reading through? Like, I didn't know this was going to come up, or I never thought about this before.
Not overall. I was pleased to get a variety of people writing from different perspectives. There are people in the food community that I didn't know particularly were writers who wrote some of my favorite poems. So that was kind of nice to have that voice come out that isn't necessarily part of the traditional Santa Barbara poetry community.
Right.
So that was a good thing, I think.
Well, you have a poem in there, I believe.
Yes, of course I had to put one of my own in.
I'd love to hear it.
Why stop at 116 when you can go to 117? This one, I really, really love chanterelles, so I had to write a poem about that. And this is called In Praise of Cantharellus californicus. My Latin is a little sloppy, so let's hope that's close. How I dream to learn some equivalent, effortless thankfulness when I consider California's official state mushroom, the golden chanterelle. It and our coastal oaks worked out a symbiosis, and then after rare rains, the ridged whorled trumpet of fungus brilliantly blooms. You can't count on them, just hope as you walk the woods with a wish to forage. Or offer dear cash at a farmer's market, almost exclaiming as if seeing a long-missed sorority sister when spying them piled on tables the first time each season. Winter has its delicious privileges. Cooking them is a lesson in getting out of the way. Just butter, the bite of fresh green garlic, white pepper to warm as gently as you can. Splurge with precious truffle salt, gilding the umami lily. Serve atop the magic your wife can do with OO flour, egg yolks, elbow grease, the genius of an Atlas pasta machine. Definitely don't forget fresh tarragon, thyme, the delight of dusting with Parmesan. Even the too damn early December dark can't dim the savoring of simple warmth and rich and earth and awe.
Well, I love how that poem becomes a recipe.
Recipes are fun. And you'll have really good chanterelles if you do that.
Yeah, I totally believe that. As someone who does like to cook himself and as also a connoisseur of cocktails, did you ever think, oh, this person's got it all wrong in terms of like a recipe or
that somebody wrote something?
Yeah.
Not too much. A couple times there were like a description. It's like,
not so much.
Well, that's your opinion. I should not crack to. And I won't point to any direction.
So again, our shows are evergreen, but just in case someone is watching this right when it comes out, I know that you have a few events planned for the anthology.
Yes, there will be a reading May 20th, I believe, at
2026. Okay.
So that's going to be the big initial out, even though the book will be available before then. So that will be happening, and then I'm going to blow the date. I believe it's May 11th, 2026. We are also part of the Santa Barbara Culinary Event Experience series, and so there's going to be a fancier thing happening with, you get a whole bunch of food, there'll be some wine, it will be at Black Sheep Restaurant, wine will be by Pally. Everyone who attends will get a copy of the book, there'll be a little panel, some book reading, and a lot of really, really good food, because
sounds great.
The Perez family knows what they're doing at Black Sheep. So very excited about that one. And then there'll be a bunch of other ones. Yeah, we're trying to work on a series. With 117 people in the book, you could do a lot of readings.
It's a lot, plenty of opportunities. Well, let me switch over a little bit. So, one of the other duties of a poet laureate is to um, create poems in response to requests and certain events and stuff like that. And as I said at the top of the show, you've been out and about doing a lot of stuff. You have a few poems here that you've written. Could you read them and tell us what the event was that inspired?
Sure, yeah, I can definitely work on that if you'd like, since one that's happening in relation to this taping just the end of this week, March 28th, there's a coffee culture fest. And one of the projects when I saw there's something going on with coffee houses and poetry seem to go together. So I reached out to the organizer for that, Ellie Iverson, and said, hey, how can we be part of this? And we came up with this idea of having some shorter poems up on sort of banners throughout the whole festival.
Right.
And that people would just sort of encounter them then. So this is the one I wrote for that I tried to keep really short.
Very short. Yeah.
Yeah, it's all of 5 lines, right? It's called Morning Mud. What I love best about the French press, that insistent push down on the brewed grounds, detonates my day.
Nice.
Okay.
Well, and I
A
love
little
that
bit of rhyming.
Yeah,
Yes,
there's a lot.
seems like
There's a lot in there. Yeah.
trying to have a little bit of music to it. And I do really love I always think of like blowing up the bomb thing when I'm doing the French press. And so,
So, and I think it's great that people will just be encountering these poems, whether they like it or not, as they walk around.
I've run.
So
They'll be able to run fast.
Yeah.
They'll be caffeinated.
that's an instance where you heard of an event and you thought, oh, this might work well with poetry, and you reached out to to the organizers, which is great. I mean, that's one of the things I think it's important for poet laureates to do. What's your next one?
All right. This is one where they asked me, which was really kind of them. There was a creative economy town hall meeting, and that brought together, it was actually a tri-county one, so it was SLO, Ventura, and Santa Barbara. It was held at Santa Barbara's CAW.
I believe I was there.
And you were there, yes. And the person, although a lot of it was talking like workshopping and little small group action and turning back into the larger room, they kicked it off with me reading a few poems, and then another group did a little dance performance.
Yeah.
So you had some creatives do something before the creative economy thing, which I thought was really nice of them. And they even paid us, which, because if it's, if you're doing the economy part, one would
You're
that's
the dollars
somewhere talent later. So this is one that I wrote for that, knowing it was a larger art audience. And it's kind of a joke because, people do manifestos about their art. So this is a quick one. So I called it a mini-festo. Mini-festo. When one of my favorite teachers told the class, calling it art merely means I like it a whole bunch. You don't know how much that freed me. I like that class a whole bunch, so I damn well better call it art. Ditto, that little dance you did just for me. The sun shyly pinking into a brief sunset after an all-cloud day. The trail of song behind the sandwich shop worker cycling home down our street. That waft of fresh tarragon on the first English peas of the season, sizzling in shallots and butter. Art, all of it, splitting time into doing, and then the delicious, you were there too, sense of done.
So there's another person in that poem. Is that Chris Yost?
Maybe briefly, the one doing the little dance.
Yeah.
Yes, my dear wife.
Yeah, I was going to say,
Laureate. And
what is that like as to be married to a former poet laureate and be the current one?
it's good to have seen all the things she's done and know what that role can be.
Right.
And she's a great support because she knows so much about writing and publishing. And
She often accompanies you to these events.
yeah. I mean, it's been fun because there was always sort of the joke, since she was poet laureate number 5, I'm number 11. I had a stretch of getting to be part of the spouse auxiliary to the Poets Laureate for many years.
Right.
And
Now she's part.
now she gets to be part of it, and so we get to
Yeah.
switch off like that.
Yeah. Very
So
cool.
it's a good thing.
Let's go to your next event,
Okay.
expo.
I've had a connection with the Santa Barbara Museum of Natural History I've been going and know the museum for a long time, but I'm also got to write their 100-year history for their centennial, which
Is that out?
eventually will come out.
We don't know when that's out.
We're not sure exactly.
Okay. Eventually is a good, good time.
Yes. It's being worked on.
Right. But anyway, you've taken a deep dive into their.
Yes, I really know the history now, having written and rewritten this. And I get along well with, the people who run things there. So we've been able to do some readings there. And we did a lovely one in their backyard, the space that we are under all these oaks. It feels like a little outdoor cathedral. It's really just gorgeous. It was a fall event, late summer, early fall event. And it was just a gorgeous evening. So this is from that one that I wrote kind of specifically for then that seemed to work. And it's also dealing with stuff that's been happening lately that's hard, hard to avoid getting into poems because our world is a little bit messed up right now, to put it mildly. So this is called Flight. It takes just one bee to drown out the music in my own head with its insistent buzzing, a hum, as if even it needed to let noise loose in celebration of its dizzy loops. I just hope to settle in the marvel of its see-through wings, the way the afternoon winds picked up pace doesn't trouble the bee with turbulence. And I swear this isn't made up. As soon as I sat down and looked, a hawk soared above me as if a director just shouted action, the bird's belly downy white and vulnerable. I can almost, really, almost forget 90 miles to my south, militarized men sweep a park of people I'm told to hate, to fear. The hawk has left the sky empty of everything but blue.
Very nice. I remember I was sitting in the audience for that event, and it made me think too. One of the great things about having a poet laureate, this is a pitch to the city council to keep doing it, is how many different places that you can have poetry. So, like you said, that's in the backyard. There's a great little auditorium, the concrete steps to sit on. And you're outside among all the oak trees. You could look up at the blue sky there for your final image. Um, what are some of the other places that you've been to that you wouldn't normally think of as having poetry?
Well, we got to do a poetry and fiction and nonfiction reading at the Plaza del Mar band shell, the historic band shell down at the corner of Castillo and Cabrillo. And so that was kind of fascinating. Some things went a little interesting there, as some people have written poems about. Perhaps someone sitting here with me, as you were one of the readers of that.
Yeah.
But it was a cool place to get to read.
It really was.
Things didn't sort of go odd with a non-attendee who enjoyed shouting things out while we were trying to read. But there's that one. I got to do a poem on the steps of the old mission in celebration of the 100th anniversary of the Great Santa Barbara earthquake. So that was a kind of interesting spot and such a great place to read, because while you're reading, there's an audience there, and then there's the Rose Garden, and then there's the ocean and the Channel Islands, and it's like, what more beautiful place? And you're on the steps of this historic place that's got issues, right? But all the outdoor stuff is always kind of fascinating.
Yeah. And as you said, at the band shell, there was an individual who was kind of yelling during the readings, and that itself, it becomes kind of part of the thing.
Yeah. It's part of the lore.
It's part of the
It's a big, easy for me to say he wasn't shouting during my part of it.
Right. You have, I think, one more poem from your recent
Yeah, this is another one. I was trying to pick shorter ones because some of them wound up being pretty long, like the earthquake poem or the poem that I first wrote for city council last year when I was installed. That would be pretty much your whole program. I've had those. So, but this was hospice has long had a series of programs in December called Light Up a Life, where you put memories of people on a tree and then it gets lit up. It's a very moving ceremony, and they do them several places around town. And former poet laureate Perry Longo is very tied in with them, and so she always does a couple of those and then asks another poet to do some of them. So I got to do a couple in December, and it's a tough situation because you're writing, hospice is, we all know what hospice is, but how do you write about that honestly, but still hopefully?
Sure.
And so that was kind of the goal. And it was also tricky because this was happening right after we lost a dog for a long time that we'd had for 14 and a half years. So obviously dog is very different than human in hospice, but I was living in that kind of mournful place. Yeah. So trying to write this and then hoping I could read it and not like bawl in the middle of it was an interesting task. But I kind of like this poem. I think it works. The title is Hold Still, and there's a comma there. I hope being frank doesn't make me seem dismissive or blunt, but the first person to use the term dumb for those who can't speak missed what we know of silence. After all, the world loves to underline the ineffectuality of talk. How often our words become an old sock, unrescuable by darning a forgotten fire extinguisher long dried of its saving foam, a family sedan with busted brakes. Although quiet is time's ultimate victor, it opens us up to learn a language of touch. Consider the mercy of fingers giving grace along the non-pulse measuring side of a still wrist. Or my sweet God, this, the trace of a caress of a face whose eyes haven't opened for hours, but still you have them memorized, suddenly realizing all your years of study, all the lessons we suffer to learn, the losing, but never letting go.
Oh, that's really beautiful.
Thanks. And I get to do my favorite thing about saying how horrible language is and it doesn't work, which is why I stopped writing for 13 years at one point.
Right.
Yeah.
And that is a kind of interesting part of your biography, is that you just stopped doing it.
Stopped doing poetry.
Poetry, yeah. But I mean, you're the poet laureate now.
A ton.
Yeah.
I tried, I don't even remember the figures. I tried to work in someplace. I got to do a Compline talk at Trinity Episcopal, which was more of a essay, mothish kind of thing. And I did a calculation, I can't remember now, about how many words I probably have written in prose in the meantime when I wasn't writing poetry. And it was like millions,
Literally millions.
I think, yeah, because
Yeah.
I wrote a lot when I was doing that.
You got a lot to say?
I repeat myself frequently, I think, too. But
One of the things as I was listening to those 4 poems, I was thinking how timeless they are. And even though I was poet laureate back when dinosaurs roamed the earth, and the 3rd poet laureate, I can still recall thinking, this poem isn't going to age well because I'm tied to some particular time-bound event. Have you felt like you could mostly get around that as you're writing, or are you just kind of thinking, well, some of these poems are not going to be poems for eternity?
well, I think that of all my poems, to be honest. But yeah, I mean, it's always how do you find the more universal in that specific moment, I think, is something I'm striving for. So it still has some strength as a poem and isn't just.
Right.
And I've been lucky that I haven't had too many really, really specific versions of that. But to go back to my incredibly talented wife, Chris Yost, one of her toughest assignments when she was poet laureate about writing about the Cater water treatment plant is one of the best poems she wrote, I think. while being poet laureate and one of her best poems.
Right, because the challenge was so
Right.
yeah,
Of
steep.
course, she like pulls a sonnet out and stuff too.
She can write faster than anybody.
And it's a gorgeous sonnet. It really works. So I think that can happen,
Yeah.
if you can try. I'm not sure, it's been nice that the installation poem, which I did as sort of a Santa Barbara City symphony, seems very tied to that moment in some ways. But Chris Buckley, who does the Journal Salt,
Right.
kindly ran it there too. So, who knows if somebody picks that up 10 years from
Right.
now,
And they would-
and they'll go, I don't get this,
Right.
but it still sort of works as a snapshot, I
think it
hope, of
does.
something
Yeah.
that even if at that point, there's
Right.
cars all over State Street again, and this talk about how nice it is that it's car free, and praising that it might be a
Right.
odd memory.
We just have a couple minutes left. I'm curious. This is a lot of work. Does it take you a long time to write an occasional poem? I mean, the coffee poem probably came pretty quickly, but other poems.
It depends. I've been trying. It's been bad starting in 2026, but for much of 2025, I was trying to write something a day.
Right.
And I think doing that muscle work helps get you when you're trying to work on one that you actually need for something, which then would take a while usually, right, to do some versions of it, as opposed to just sort of dashing something off and saying, oh, I did my poem for the day, time for the cocktail.
Right.
Which often actually I was drinking while writing the poem. So I think that helps. Yeah. Oddly enough, many of the poems are about drinking cocktails. Ooh, the last word is a great metaphor for writing.
In our last minute, literally now, we're about at that point. I'm curious if we're talking out to other poet laureates or future poet laureates, not just in Santa Barbara, but everywhere or around the country, around the world. Do you have a piece or two of advice to people who are entering the world of poet laureateship?
It will surprise you all the time, so be ready for that. There's so many people out there who want to know more about poetry. They really do. So try to keep reaching out to all those different communities and trying to find ways to connect with all kinds of people. I've been really trying to get into the schools, and it's finally starting to happen.
Oh, good.
So that's exciting because working with youth is important because too many of the poets are of a certain age.
Right.
At this point.
Yeah, even just a little bit younger than me, right?
Yeah. Days away from me being the same age as Spring Day.
Yes. So good. That's good advice. Last thing that you would like to say to the Santa Barbara audience before we sign off?
Keep paying attention. There's sbpoetry.net is a great place to find out what's happening in poetry in Santa Barbara. We've got all the events. So look at that and come join us for something.
Yeah, you're always welcome. So thank you for doing such a great job, George. You have raised the bar considerably for those to go.
Thank you, Dave. The
Creative Community is produced by TVSB here in Santa Barbara. I'm your host, David Starkey, and we'll see you next time.